there, welcome to the Underdog podcast. I'm your host, Chris Cameron. Today's topic of discussion will be Super Bowl 52. All the highs, all the lows, all the best plays, the worst plays, the funny commercials that they had in it, and kind of what my predictions are going to be for Super Bowl 53. So, let's get right to it. The most talked about thing, the most made fun of thing from that Super Bowl is actually probably Tom Brady's messed up catch. I think it was at the beginning of the second quarter.
Third down and 5 here. And now you got to flip back here to Danny Amendola. He throws and it's Brady who can't hold it in.
It's just going to hand off and then ignore, he's not doing anything, and there he goes. And immediately Chris Lawrence.
So, like I said, it was the most talked about thing online right now. It's the most made fun of thing online right now as far as like football fans and memes and stuff like that. To me, I thought it was just a botched play. I've seen the Patriots do trick plays before, but I don't think Tom Brady probably should have done that play. I think there is an earlier game. I don't know what Eagles game it was, but I think I've seen him do the same play against the Eagles before, and it actually worked for him. But a lot of people were just saying, that it was his like age and he shouldn't have been running the ball, I guess necessarily, or running to try and catch the ball. And that's why he shouldn't have done that. He's not a receiver technically. I don't think he's a receiver. He's a quarterback. He should stay back. I think he's not a good runner either. I think he's like one of the worst runners as far as a football player goes. So I think he shouldn't have tried it, honestly, especially in a game like the Super Bowl. And I've seen him do other trick plays like the flea flicks and stuff like that, where they can pull that off a lot better. I know their special teams are capable of doing something better, so I don't think he should have tried that play at all. So we got the other one, though, the opposing one. The amazing play that happened, which was Nick Foles doing like this insane catch.
And they're going to snap it, and it's Trey Burton who throws caught. Foles, touchdown.
So yeah, I mean, like to me that's crazy because that's Nick Foles. He's a backup quarterback trying to pull something like that off. I guess they've only from what I've read, they only tried to practice that, or they had only practiced that play at least 3 times within that week, so it's not something they knew like right off the top of their head. It's just something that they've practiced maybe a couple times in practice, but other than that, it's not something that they knew professionally enough to try and pull off, but they figured they could pull it off against the Patriots. So that's pretty gutsy as far as the Eagles go, to try and pull something like that off against the Patriots in the Super Bowl. But then again, too, they were ahead, so it's not like that it wouldn't have worked. They could have kicked a field goal if it didn't go as planned or it wasn't as successful. But yeah, that was probably the best play of the Super Bowl was Nick Foles' trick play. Both of them were, interesting on different ends of the spectrum. One of them was the worst play, we've ever seen from, potentially like what people consider the greatest quarterback of all time. But yeah, it was the worst play he's ever made, and it was in the Super Bowl. And then it's probably the best play, one of the best plays that's ever happened in a Super Bowl too, and that was from a backup quarterback. So yeah, I mean, there's some crazy stuff that happened throughout the game other than that, but those were like the top 2 highlights that had happened. Some other news that came out with Super Bowl 52 ending was that a lot of people are contemplating that Gronk is going to retire. He even kind of questioned that himself in like a post interview that or post Super Bowl interview that he's possibly thinking about retiring. He can't answer, he said that he's not going to answer those questions yet. I think that would be crazy if Gronk retires. I've seen that guy play live before. To give them credit, he's like, trying to cover a basketball player on the field. It's like one of the biggest dudes you'll ever see play football. Most of the time, most teams have to do double coverage on him, and if they don't, Brady's going to throw right to him. So it'd be crazy that he leaves. But then again, the Patriots are pretty good, as most teams are, as far as like filling in that gap for somebody. Most teams have like 1 or 2 good receivers, or like the receivers that they're most notable. Like if I think, for example, like Cincinnati, everyone knows who AJ Green is, but that's the only guy they really have. With like someone like me, I'm a Steelers fan, we have like multiple receivers. We got Martavis Bryant, we got Antonio Brown, you have Juju Smith-Schuster, and just like that, the Patriots, they don't have notable receivers, but they have guys that they can fill in. They have people like Amendola and Edelman, who was out the entire season, but he was in there too, and Gronk. So he's got, like, just like us, they've got multiple people that they could put in. So if Gronk does retire, I wouldn't feel too bad for the Patriots because I'm sure they could find someone to replace him. Another one that, me being a Steelers fan and all, it's kind of interesting to hear is that James Harrison is thinking about moving on. From what I know, he only had a 1-year deal contract signed with the Patriots, and even then he didn't really play that long with the Patriots. He only played a couple games with them and then went into the Super Bowl. So it wasn't like he had played the entire season with them. If he does move on, part of me hopes he comes back and becomes the Steelers and we'll just forget about that little incident in New England. But if he doesn't go back to us, and if he doesn't go back to the Pats, I'd be interested to see who might pick him up. He is a prime pick in my opinion. The dude's only like 35, 36 years old. He's not that old considerably, but he's pretty old for as far as like a football player goes, especially someone who's playing on the defensive end of things. The dude, I think, is in prime health. If you've ever watched any of his like workout videos and stuff like that, it's just insane. Another one that is interesting too, that's been hitting some like the NFL news and stuff like that, is Josh McDaniels, the Pats offensive coordinator, was given an offer to go and coach for the Colts, and he denied it. Rumors were, or at least like the reports had speculated, that he was actually going to go and be the head coach for the Colts, and they even said that during the Super Bowl that he might be going to the Colts. And then like 2 or 3 days later, he denied it and said that he's going to stay and become the offensive coordinator for the New England Patriots. And to me, I found this online. I got to read this for you guys. This is pretty funny. There's a Twitter account. It's called Captain Andrew Luck. And it's funny because it's like an old school Civil War picture of Andrew Luck, because the dude looks like he's from the Civil War. But it's funny, and I have to read it to you the way they wrote it, because it's just hilarious to me how they wrote it. It says, "Dearest mother, I write to you the most distressful news. The men have been hoodwinked. The deserter McDaniels is on the lam, likely headed toward New England. My best scouts report. Was this a ploy to merely spy? We shall never know. Irritating. Sincerest, Andrew." That's just hilarious to me. If you ever get a chance, go look up on Twitter Captain Andrew Luck. It's just like everything they write is like an old Civil War letter. He writes to his mother the entire time. It's pretty funny. Just go check it out. That's what I'm getting from the expression from most people who are Colts fans, is they didn't really care whether he came back or not. They're just looking for someone to lead that team as far as a coach goes. Part of me thinks that Josh McDaniels might have stayed because they're going to try and go for another Super Bowl push. I think that's crazy because, from a football perspective of things, I think we've seen the end of the Patriots dynasty. I don't think that it's going to happen anymore for them. I think, give him maybe like 1 or 2 more years and Brady's probably going to retire. The dude's just getting so old at this point. And then, there's other people too, like Matt Patricia, their defensive coordinator, is moving on to Detroit, and he's like one of the better defensive coordinators in the entire league. So he's going on to Detroit to actually coach the Detroit Lions. So it'd be interesting because now they got to work with a new defensive coordinator. Now they got new people on the team and stuff like that. And then you had rumors too that Belichick was gonna leave that organization. So it's just, there's a lot of things going on. I don't think the Patriots are going back to the Super Bowl necessarily. I think we've seen the end of that dynasty, and they're going to go through the process most teams go through, that the Browns have been going through since forever, which is rebuilding their team. Another interesting bit of news, a lot of people are speculating, but there's no actual like real news about it, is who's going to start for the Eagles next season. A lot of people are pretty sure that's going to be Carson Wentz. Does that mean Nick Foles stays as a backup quarterback, or does that mean he's going to, is he going to move on and go to a different team? There's a lot of teams in the league that are actually looking for a quarterback, that need a quarterback desperately. Maybe he goes to their division rivals and goes to the Redskins because they're going to need a quarterback too. Maybe he stays under Carson Wentz, who knows? Or maybe Carson Wentz lets go too, because Nick Foles kind of proved to everybody this year that he's actually quarterback worthy necessarily. He didn't play a bad game, and he didn't look like a backup quarterback out there. The guy's got some years on him as far as a player goes. So we'll see where that leads. As far as the Super Bowl in general, halftime show, I'm not a Justin Timberlake fan at all, so I'm not like impressed by it. I usually am not impressed by the Super Bowl halftime show. Of course, everybody watches the Super Bowl, if they're not a football fan, for the commercials. And probably some of the funniest commercials to me were, at least the two I thought of immediately, were the Tide commercial, because it's, making fun of every other commercial and every other ad that's going to be coming on for the Super Bowl. And when I watch that commercial, if you go watch it online right now on YouTube, because I can't play it for legal rights, but if you watch the Tide commercial, it's literally like you think the commercial ends and then it doesn't, and then you think the commercial ends and it doesn't. It's just him making fun of every single commercial that would probably air otherwise on the Super Bowl. And then there's the Budweiser Dilly Dilly. Dilly Dilly is probably stuck in everybody's head. It's probably not going to go away at all. It's probably going to be the saying for like the next 10 years for Budweiser. It's an amazing advertisement scheme if you think about it. I think it was, I was watching some video, I don't know who exactly, but the guys who did the advertisement or created the advertisement for Budweiser, they said that in test groups that Dilly Dilly didn't work, that people didn't like that saying at all, or they just didn't think it was funny at all or life like that. And then they just kind of went for it. They took a gamble and said that it would work. And I remember watching the Super Bowl in a Steelers bar this year, and every time the Budweiser commercial came on, or every time something funny happened, or like when Brady dropped his pass, everyone was just yelling Dilly Dilly. So, to me that's funny. I'm not a drinker at all. I don't drink at all, but it's still something I will say enjoyably. It's just a hella funny saying. It doesn't mean anything at all. all. It's just it's funny. It's a great advertisement scheme, and I think it worked for what it was supposed to work. Last thing I'll say about Super Bowl 52 is my prediction for Super Bowl 53, who I think the two teams are going to be. And I, of course, think, being a Steelers fan at heart, the AFC, I will always go with the Steelers. I will never abandon that team. What I bleed black and gold, bleed black and yellow. Then on the opposite side, the NFC, I think the team that's going to go in for it is going to be the Saints. I think they had kind of not a botched year, but a botched game against the Vikings. I think they could have beaten them easily enough. I mean, it wasn't like they lost like by an incredible amount. It wasn't like the Vikings when they played the Eagles and they lost by a huge chunk of things. A huge chunk of points. They lost only by a couple points against the Vikings. It came down to the wire. I think the Saints are going to do it. I think Drew Brees had kind of a career year in general. I think he's trying to get up there too with people like Brady and Manning. He wants to be noted like that. That's where he wants to be as far as like standing as a quarterback. I know he wants to go back to the Super Bowl too. It's been a while since that team's been to the Super Bowl. They made the playoffs a couple years in a row now too. So it's one of those teams I think I'd be on the radar for it, watch out for. But then again, who knows? There's I didn't know from the beginning of this year that most of the teams that made it to the playoffs. I wouldn't have told you that the Jags and the Buffalo Bills would have made it to the playoffs this year. So anything could happen next year, and it could be anybody's game next year. It's going to be insane. I'm interested too to see what the Eagles are going to do now that Carson Wentz is going to be healthy next season. They'll probably have an on-fire season. The Raiders are going to be crazy too. The Raiders literally have, like, if you were playing Madden and you wanted to make a Madden team, they have the Madden coach, the Madden quarterback, the kind of like players you want to pick in Madden. It's an insane. So it'd be crazy to me that if the Raiders don't do anything. Then again, you got, around that same kind of area, you have the 49ers, just across the bay over there. You have the 49ers who have potentially the next Tom Brady, the next, Joe Montana, Garoppolo, who's an insane quarterback if you watch him and if you look at his numbers and stuff like that. So we'll see what he does this year, though. I want to see Garoppolo play a full year instead of just like half a year or just a couple games. I want to see what he's capable of doing, playing for a full year and starting for them, what the pressures are going to be like for that too. So it could be anyone's game. I bet it's going to be, though, for Super Bowl 53, Steelers Saints. Maybe I'll make a podcast about that, a vlog about that when that happens next year. We'll see if my prediction comes true. I'm hoping to God it comes true. I'll be betting on the Steelers until that happens. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Thanks for checking it out. If you have any like music you want me to use in the podcast, just send it my way. You could email me, theunderdogpodcast@gmail.com. If you have any like clothing or anything like that, right now I'm just wearing Nike attire, and I do like Nike attire. But if you have anything you want me to wear in the podcast, just send like a link to it my way through an email, or you can send me a package too. I can give you an address you can send it to. As always, too, most importantly, just keep God first and have a good rest of your day, guys. Thanks for listening to the Underdog Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Cameron.